Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. And I'm Kisma, and I'm super excited about our show today because we have a really amazing guest. She's been on before, Ms. Elizabeth DiAlto, as the train of truth comes by.
Oh my God, I love it.
And Elizabeth is just a really fascinating human. She's the wildest soul and also a very precious soul, dear friend of ours, amazing entrepreneur, highly successful. And there's so much that she can share that I know will benefit everybody. And one of the really cool things that we'll have a photo of, I hope, in our show notes are the Wild Soul Oracle cards that Nick keeps stealing from me.
I'm borrowing. I'm not stealing. I'm borrowing.
Yeah, he has a very close relationship. But I love it. I love that these Wild Soul Oracle cards are for men and women, right, Nick?
Well, I think they're pretty clearly not for men. On the
like the one where you stand in front of the mirror naked.
Well, no, it wasn't that.
You didn't do that yet.
It just it just seems like they're.
Are you
going to
do that?
I haven't done that.
When are you going to do it? Are you going to do it tonight?
I can do it tonight. Would you want me to do it tonight?
Just no Facebook Live as you're doing it.
I won't.
Oh
Facebook
God.
Live.
It'd be unfortunate.
I'm down though. You know, I was just like, oh, that. It was definitely like pushing a boundary for me. Of
it
like,
was.
do I really want to?
But
But it was the self love card. It was really cool.
and
they're
also
great cards.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to share with everybody. Like Nick is kind of a connoisseur of cards. Like you really do love.
Why do you have to out me?
Okay, sorry. But he did the Ascended Master, like all those cards. And so when he got Elizabeth's deck, of course, he opened it, which is cool. And he keeps saying, these are so well done. Like that is you say it every time you look one. These are such great cards.
I do. Yeah. I mean, the messages are like, they're so spot on. I think sometimes with some of the cards that I've seen is they're really like airy fairy or just
Love, Light, and Clueless.
Yeah, just like really, really esoteric, and that's cool. That's not necessarily the kind of wisdom that I'm looking for from a card. You know, like it's like cards are just like, man, like give me something that I can, just really that'll really stick with me for the day, or something that I can really like kind of sink my teeth into for this time. And that's really what these are. And Elizabeth's like, she's just, well, everybody, everybody who listens will know, like Elizabeth's just so down to earth. She's really, really direct. And it's just, they're also really beautiful to look at. So,
Well,
I'll own it. Yeah,
yes,
I like them. I'm a big fan.
Good to know. I mean, they are, like you said, they are woman-centric, but of course, like men are always welcome.
Yes, right.
And I think it takes like an evolved man to be able to be like, these are clearly for women, but I can still get something out of it.
Exactly.
So nice job, Nick.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool. Well, I'll take that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Even if you're just making that up, I'm totally good with that.
I'm not.
Well, here you are, Miss Elizabeth. Welcome to Illumination Podcast. It's been a while since we had you on the show before, but we got so much feedback that it was one of our best shows. So we're super excited to have you back on. How's your day going? What you doing over there on the other side of the 5?
Well, I'm doing great. I went to the beach this morning. Sometimes my work day looks like you better go sit on the beach for 90 minutes before you attempt to do anything. So that's what I did a little listening, got some inspiration. And then I had a call with my team. I did a Facebook Live. So just jamming on some stuff. At the time we're recording this, we're 2 days from opening an enrollment period. So just like tying up all the loose ends, making sure all the stuff that's supposed to be working and uploaded and whatever is all in the right places. So it's a good time. It's that contraction before the next big expansion.
Yeah, and that's something I know Nick and I were talking about before we got on with you, is that the three of us are building businesses, and we're doing the kind of work that does command what you just described, which is some space. I love that you're like, yep, call, I got to go to the beach, and kind of do your own sort of cellular renewal before you dive into what is really deep work. And, I saw you yesterday, which was July 4th, and I know we were both working on July 4th, and Nick works a lot of holidays. It's kind of the jam of an entrepreneur sometimes is that whatever day it is, if there's something that is required to be done, like you have this launch and we're going to be talking about that later, you got to do it, right? And as well, one must prepare to be able to do it.
Yeah. And, part of it is, there was a post I saw on Instagram today that said it's like National Workaholics Day. And the meme said, I don't have a 9 to 5. I have a from when I open my eyes to when I close my eyes. And I love it. And while I thought that was cheeky and cute, what didn't resonate about it for me is there's a reason why I like to work on holidays. At this juncture in my life, like I'm a single person, I'm not in a relationship, I don't have any kids, like I see my friends on a regular basis. On days when everyone else is off, I love to grind it out and work on those days because no one else is reaching out to me.
Oh, I know.
Like I love working on Sundays and like I take off a lot of Fridays, you know? So it's cool that we can pick and choose, but I just want to be really clear. I'm the type of person people are like, you must be so busy. And I'm like, you'd be shocked at how not busy I am. But there's cycles and seasons, right? Like I did a ton of traveling this year. I think cumulatively, I've probably traveled for 3 whole months out of the 6 of this year so far, but we're in July now. And a lot of that was spent like wandering, roaming, and not doing stuff. And a lot of it was spent, doing cool things from wherever because I could work from my laptop. But I don't really love to glorify either because it's like what you said. If something needs to get done, I just get it done.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the attitude towards the work, right? It's like if we fester about it and get really nervous and anxious, it just kind of implodes and it becomes hard, and we're not really a fan of hard. I don't think any of us are. It's just being in action, doing what we're doing, but also, hey, we're here to enjoy life, which tell us a bit about your travels. I mean, I know you were in Maui twice. Is that right?
The Big Island.
The Big Island. Yeah. And you met up with some dolphin friends.
I did. Oh, so for years, I think it started in 2013. I would have orca whales and dolphins in my dreams, and they would usually be together. Like there usually weren't just orcas or just dolphins. They would be together. And so I started doing research, and I didn't realize that orcas actually are dolphins. And so super fascinating. And that happened for a couple of years. But last year in 2016, they stopped coming to my dreams. And I just had a feeling that it was because it was time for me to like get into the ocean and face my fear of the ocean. And so I've been kind of waiting and not really proactively seeking out like my ocean guide because there's so much to know about the water. I know Nick and I have like geeked out about watching the sets because he surfs and things like that. And I paddleboard, but I kind of wanted a pro, like someone who's been in the water, who knows their way around, who could tell me what to look for, because it's scary, it's intimidating, and very mysterious out there. So on my first trip to the Big Island back in April, I had posted something on Instagram, and I had this amazing woman comment and say, hey, let me know, I live here, let me know if you want to swim with dolphins. And I'm like, hi, I want to do that more than anything in the world. So I met up with this woman, gotta love social media, right? And the connections you never would have made. And she took me out swimming with a couple of her friends, and like, this is what they do. They lead tours, and they actually travel all over the world. They have swam with sperm whales in Guadeloupe. She has actually swam with orcas in Norway. I was like, are you kidding me? And so they go on all these trips. I'm like, this is what I want to do. So that first trip in April, I went out with them and did not see any dolphins. And so that's actually the primary reason why I went back at the end of May into the beginning of June. And our first day out, we swam with the pod of dolphins for probably like 90 minutes to 2 hours. And there was about 15 minutes where I caught some solo time with this one dolphin. I was just following him around like I was his buddy, like I was a dolphin too. And it was just the most, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just different under there. It's like the feeling of flying because you're floating, but you're underwater. And, I loved The Little Mermaid when I was little. So like the song Under the Sea is like playing in my brain the whole time. And it's just so magical under there. I had actually never snorkeled before. And so now I'm really interested to get into like free diving and, take trips specifically to go see these like magnificent worlds in the ocean.
I mean, it's amazing, if you just look at it, like I saw this one video that was talking about, how like we have no idea what's down there and like how deep the ocean, like we have an idea of how deep it goes, and it's deeper, much deeper than Mount Everest is high.
Right.
And that's just like mind boggling to me that
Right. Like what's at the bottom? Because we can't even get down there. Like there's not technology to get to the deepest deep, right?
Right. We don't even know. We have no idea.
That's where the boogeyman is.
That's where heaven is, you guys.
It could be, right? I mean, it's just fascinating. They talk about, and I've certainly I've seen like dolphin shows and that, which I don't see anymore for various reasons, but like, they're such intelligent creatures. Like when you were swimming with them, like what did you kind of pick up around that? Was there like a communication? Were you guys like having a conversation without talking? Like what was going on?
So I was very much in awe and very much wanting to respect their space. And since it was my first time like being near them, it was also really fun to see my friends who've like swam the dolphins so many times. They actually play this leaf game. They bring a bunch of leaves in and they drop them and the dolphins will pick them, like hook it on their fin.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. So they're certainly very with it and emotionally intelligent. And they're playing with you. It's kind of like people don't think twice about playing with a dog or playing with a cat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this much more mysterious creature that we know very little about that can seem intimidating because they could be big. Mine were little spinner dolphins. So they were like my size or smaller. Mm-hmm. But I wish I had words to describe it. It just felt like this deep connection and certainly like a communication with, especially when I was swimming around with that dolphin.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, they can swim so fast. And it was almost like he was waiting for me, like giving me the leeway to like keep up with them and keep going with them and just doing his thing. And it was cool too. As humans, I think it's the prefrontal cortex. That's like the rational part of our brain, right? Mm-hmm. Since we have that thinking faculty to follow around a creature and not know what they're thinking or what's their rhyme or reason for where they're going and what they're doing, and just try to like drop into just like that wordlessness and go, I'm not going to think, I'm just following you. And even imagining a life, like we live a life of so much doing and so much action. And their action is just like swim around, play, sleep, eat, swim around, play, sleep, eat. And I'm like, I could get down with this dolphin life.
I'd be into that. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you drop into their field, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we all work a bit in the energy realm and it's like they do have amazing energy, these creatures. And I imagine that your friend, the dolphin, just sensed your energy and was like, yeah, let's just kind of entrain here and go for a little swim.
Yeah. And so really cool. Everyone's lineages and cultures are different, but one of my friends who lives there on the Big Island was telling me in the Hawaiian culture, they actually believe that the dolphins are the ancestors. So who knows? Maybe that was like my great grandmother. Yeah.
You know us.
You never know.
You never know.
You know us. We're up for it. We're like, maybe anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Like it totally is. Like it totally is.
Some people listening are like, and I'm out.
Yeah.
Stay. There's more awesomeness with the dolphins.
We'll go back to talking about business. I promise.
Well, but I want to cover one thing. I want to revert back because I remember your first trip and you're like, there were no dolphins. I've never taken a walk along the beach with you where there wasn't a dolphin when you called upon them. There seems to be some significance there. I mean, am I just making that up or did you sense anything? Was it off season? I mean, to me, that was very strange.
Oh, you know what? I really felt like it was, I needed space to get in the water because I'd never snorkeled before. Okay. I needed to have the experience so that when I got into the water and they were there, I'd already gotten the initial jitters and fears out of the way.
Yeah, good point. Mm-hmm.
I was super comfortable when I got in the water the day they came. And so I didn't have to waste any time on navigating two new things. It was just one new thing, being in the water with them. So that's what I really felt like it was about.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense too. Mm-hmm. I went snorkeling when I was in Maui and it does take a minute to just kind of feel like, oh, okay, I'm good, and
is their water going to come down through that pipe?
Right.
Yeah. It works out. It was funny though, because the first time I went, both of the women I was with, they were like, are you sure you've never done this before? And I'm like, you guys, I've done it a million times in my dreams. Like in my dreams, I'm not wearing like snorkel gear or anything, but I'm swimming underwater and I'm breathing. Oh. And so it was really something I had experienced quite vividly in the dream world. And so once I was underwater, I was like, oh, no way. Once I figured out how the breathing mechanism worked and how I could like dive under, clear my ears and then come back up and blow the water water out. I mean,
Yeah.
I was basically a dolphin. I was like, this is as close as I'm going to get that I know of.
So kind of similar topic, or like a little sidebar here. Like with your dreams, like when you have dreams, do you like how much stock do you put in your dreams? Is it like a calling for you, or is it, you waiting for something to reoccur? Like what do you think about that?
So I've never had recurring dreams, as in the same dream more than once. I've had recurring themes for sure, but I love dream work. Sometimes before I go to bed, I will consciously bring something to sleep with me and be like, hey, I'd love to work this out in my dreams, just like set a little intention. And I have a dream journal. So when I wake up in the morning, if I remember my dreams, I'll write out exactly what I remember without analyzing it, because then when I reread it, I can often I'll contemplate it for a little bit, but then when I actually write it out, I'll catch little messages and little connections. And I'm basically just looking for the same thing I would look at when I'm awake, which are just like synchronicities, patterns, things connecting, symbolism. And I love to geek out on, mythology, archetypes, and symbols, so that when things show up in my dreams, I can kind of feel into what is it pointing me towards. But like anything like that, dream time, past life stuff, all these things that there's actually no hard and fast way to say, definitively, this is what this means. I'm not going to put all my eggs in the basket, but I'm certainly, if something feels like a really clear message, I'll absolutely just be super appreciative, thank the dream, whomever brings me the messages, whatever that is, my higher self, my wild soul. And I love it. I find it super inspiring and, to use the word of the day, illuminating.
Yeah, that's cool. That's kind of similar to how I think about it, although I haven't really spent a lot of time writing them out. What I've heard is that when you wake up and write your dreams out, you actually tend to remember them a little bit more. Have you found that to be true?
Yes. And I notice a couple of different variables that determine how well I remember my dreams. If it's a dream I have in the middle of the night and then I wake up, I may not remember that as well in the morning. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I tend to wake up really early at some point, usually between anywhere from 1 to 4, and then I'll often go back to sleep, though sometimes I don't. And it's often the dreams I have when I fall back to sleep that when I wake up, those were super vivid and I remember those better. How vivid and how well I remember my dreams, there's a pretty direct correlation between where I am in my menstrual cycle. If I'm in the later phases, my premenstrual phase, or I'm actually on my bleed, my dreams are way more vivid and I remember them way better, because it's just a much more naturally intuitive time for a woman anyway. Mm-hmm. But there's all kinds of factors. And then sometimes too, I have these epic dreams that feel like they went on for the whole night, even though they probably didn't, because I'm sure time and space in dreamscape is far different from that 3D time. But sometimes it just feels like my psyche's taking out the trash and just draining out. It's this is ready to go. That it'll just be so many people from so many different times in my life, and and then sometimes too, I'll have these experiences, which I've had other people share with me that they've had this too, where you're in a dream and it's a person. So for example, Nick, say I knew you were in my dream, but it was a totally different person's body, but I knew it was you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was me, a different incarnation of me.
Who knows, right? So super interesting. Yeah, dreams are also, again, I'm all about the mysteries. Again, not trying to predict or evaluate stuff too much, but taking a look at what feels really clear and going, great, I could use that. Let's run with it.
Yeah, I love that. When I go either to India to study or when I'm doing a lot of work here, I find my dreams tend to be like regurgitation. Old stuff. It's like you said, just coming up and out so that there's space for the new teachings to come in. And it's fascinating, right? Because all of a sudden I'll be dreaming about somebody or something that happened 30 years ago. I'm like, what? Why is that coming up? And I think it brings to light how much information and how much material resides in us, whether it's the subconscious level, the little self, however anybody wants to frame it. It's there is stuff, and the more that we are willing to expunge that and then download the higher mind aspects or higher teachings or just a higher way of being, life really takes on a new form and a new meaning.
Yeah. And, I also, our mutual teacher, Siobhan, once was saying, I notice sometimes I'll dream directly about what's happening in my waking life. And she once indicated that I need to cut my cords if that's happening.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, it starts looping around and then it's just trying to work itself out. It's fascinating. Like you said, though, but we're exposed to so much information on a daily basis. It's truly
so
ridiculous.
Much. Yeah, and it depends too. If I watch TV before bed, I don't remember my dreams very well, and the quality feels like junk food.
Oh, isn't that interesting? It's like a bag of potato chips, and oh man.
Yeah.
Well, thank God House of Cards is over, Nick, because
oh my God, I can't even. I think it was like the third season. It got so violent, I had to stop watching it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I am like counting down the days till Game of Thrones.
You too.
Oh, man,
you too,
I
Game
can't
of
wait.
Thrones. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had to stop that once that one guy got his head like. Yeah. We all know the scene.
That was season 1.
And that's when I stopped. I couldn't handle. It was like a melon bean just imploded.
So gross.
Yeah.
So gross.
Let's move on.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, I don't think we've ever actually had this conversation really about Wild Soul and like where you came up with that. Like when I hear it, it's just like, oh, that's Elizabeth. Like it seems so natural to me. I've never really even bothered to question.
Like it's on your birth certificate or something.
Yeah. Like, oh, Elizabeth, like Wild Soul.
Here she comes.
But I don't think I've ever, talked to you about like where did that actually come from and like what inspired it and like how did you birth this whole wild movement?
So back in 2013, it was an accumulation of a couple things. I was in fitness for many years. And at a certain point, I had realized that I just like wasn't into how the fitness industry operates anymore. No knock against it. It was just no longer for me. And this is when I really started to geek out on other types of movement, yoga, sensual movement, pole dancing, like other things that I had different felt experiences in my body that were also kind of combined with like having an internal experience as equal, if not greater than to the external experience. And so I also at that time had really started studying feminine archetypes because I'd received a lot of feedback in a lot of my life, my teens and my 20s, that I was intimidating or that I was too masculine. And I was like, cool, like, let me try to figure out how to be more feminine or be softer or whatever the hell that means. So, it was cool because in my studies, I came across all these different archetypes and this book called Awakening Shakti by Sally Kempton. When I got to the chapter, she uses the 9 goddesses of yoga to describe the archetypes. And when I got to the Durga chapter, I was like, oh, fierce warrior-like is one way to be feminine. I've been feminine all along.
Yeah, they don't usually talk about that one,
No.
by the way.
No one wants to talk about
that's
that.
not like the feminine one.
Yeah, because so I haven't experienced, like people talk about like being bullied or being shamed. I haven't experienced a lot of that in my life, but if I could say I had experienced in any realm, it was actually around that, like not being feminine, being like too masculine, or like I was a tomboy growing up. I played a lot of sports and stuff. So for me, the way I felt to like recognize this aspect of myself that truly was feminine, once I realized that like such a spectrum of what femininity could look like, such a spectrum of what masculinity could look like, I became really, really inspired to clue other women in, like me, who had no idea and have spent a lot of their lives feeling like, well, I must not be like a real woman, or I'm not like prissy or dainty, or like the traditional forms of femininity that are like obvious and celebrated in like fairy tales and movies and stuff. And so at that time too, I had also started studying a lot of subtle body stuff. I had gone through a couple of Reiki attunements, and I still was very much like a body oriented person in terms of like physical movement. And so I just kind of experimented. I already had a little bit of an online platform. And so I did a beta course. At the time I called it 2x1, which was supposed to mean, your physical body and your energetic body were the 2. And then the 1 was your soul. But the problem,
very artistic,
right? And the problem was I had written it out like 2x1, and so people were calling it 2 times 1, and I was like, okay, that's a branding red flag. So what had also happened is I started writing about on my blog and also just on Facebook, just like striking up conversations to kind of do the idea validation thing, just to be like, is this even a conversation other people care about, So as I was doing that, I was noticing I was getting a lot. People were chiming in a lot, but a lot of the messages were coming in privately. I was getting text messages from my friends, private Facebook messages, emails. People were not really wanting to comment out in the open on Facebook because it was like kind of vulnerable, intimate, personal. So I started a Facebook group, and I don't remember why or how I called the Facebook group the Soul Movement Salon. And then many months later, when I was like going through the whole branding and creation, I had hired a creative director, and we're literally sitting on the beach in Venice, like with our notebooks out at the end of Rose Avenue in Venice Beach, if anyone's ever been there. And there were all these words that felt really important to me, and like all these images. So there was like passion and fire, and there was soulful and sacred and feminine and woman and all these things. And my creative director goes, what about wild soul movement? And we were both just like, that's definitely it.
Landed.
We were like, I think I started crying, and that's always a good sign. You guys know.
The truth cry.
The tears of truth, just like the train of truth. Mm-hmm. So that was it.
Wow. That's really cool. I mean, like I said, it just so suits exactly what you do. Hey, I was looking at your Instagram the other day, and you posted a video of like you were, she was
doing the shake.
She was doing the shake in front of the mirror. Is that what I'm supposed to do when I'm doing the self-love thing, or is it like is it different than that?
I think the self-love is more of just like looking at yourself and repeating, I love you, isn't it?
Oh God, that feels uncomfortable for me. Like right? a little uncomfortable in a certain way.
Mirror work is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. So when I had started doing sensual movement, the pole dancing classes I had gone to, and another practice I had done with my friend Rochelle, which is called Koya, there's no mirrors. Because it's obviously easier to like get into your body and just focus on the movement and the sensation, how it feels when you can't look at yourself, because you can't be self-conscious. But it takes it to a real another level of self-acceptance and self-love when you can look at yourself and there's no hiding. Yeah. So I've done that just sitting in front of the mirror, but I really do every morning. When I say that's my daily practice, like I stand in front of the mirror and I shake, I jiggle my thighs, I shake my belly, like I shake out everything. And that particular morning, I was so energized when I woke up. I literally had to do that because I just felt like I was going to explode. I was so excited. I was so happy. Have you guys seen the Despicable Me movies?
Only the first one.
Yeah, me too.
You see the littlest girl, Agnes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's my favorite because like there's a point, I don't know if it's that movie or the second one, where she's like hugging something or doing whatever. And she's like, I'm so happy. And I'm like, I feel like Agnes a lot of mornings when I wake up. So
why don't you bottle that? Like that's really valuable. Just pop it in the funnel.
If you can put that in a pill.
People have asked me that, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I have an outrageous amount of enthusiasm, and sometimes I just don't even know where to put it.
But I think that's the reason that you have it is because you use it.
Mm-hmm, right?
It's like a lot of times, if people have enthusiasm for something and then it gets kind of like squashed or hidden or like pushed in the background and like, oh, that's not important. But the reason that you have so much is because you're actually using it, like you're putting it to use in the world, and that creates that kind of increase of it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like the law of mind action. I mean, what you appreciate, because you appreciate enthusiasm, you gain more of it. Right. Well, when people don't appreciate something, they just repel it. And you're just an enthusiast. I mean, on so many levels.
And I appreciate it now more than ever. Because like, as you guys know, I came out of a relationship like 9-10 months ago now. And that was something that was really triggering for my former partner. He like wasn't a very enthusiastic person. Mm-hmm. And so I hadn't realized until afterwards how much I'd actually dialed down my enthusiasm because it made him uncomfortable. So as part of like this year of like being on my own and kind of reclaiming all these things, and not just for the purpose of that relationship, but just over the years that I had like dialed down to make other people comfortable, enthusiasm was like one of the number one things that I was like, damn, like I actually really like this about myself. And from now on, if it makes other people uncomfortable, that's just like a red flag for me that like those aren't my people,
Exactly. And the world needs it. I mean, people need enthusiasm. They need a purpose. They need to be able to face forward for something and get that reignition going. So rock on.
Kisma,
well, and here's what was so, sorry.
I was just going to say, I was going to ask Kisma, is there something that she dials down that Is there anything that you dial down that you did in order
In
to
front
make
of you?
Well, not necessarily for me, but in order to make other people comfortable?
I don't know. Not anymore. I think I'm just too old for that. I think I'm just done,
done with it.
With it not being who I'm supposed to be.
Huh. I think if I had to answer that, I'd say my geeky side.
Oh,
like
you're
I
more of a
don't
geek.
I don't always geek out on things like as much as I would. Like it's like not as cool.
Well,
you know?
we'll have to create an extra card in the deck that says geek out.
Well, maybe I haven't gotten to that one.
Well, and I think geeking out on stuff, I think is an expression of enthusiasm.
It totally is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Because you guys know me, I geek out on stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, and Kisma, to proof of what you said about like the world needs it, the world wants it. So that was, what was it, like a 15, 20-second Instagram video of me like jumping around and shaking, but like I'm having so much fun. There's like pure joy on my face.
Yeah.
That video was viewed more than anything I've ever posted on Facebook or Instagram.
I love that, because think of all the people jumping around and shaking and not caring, like just
Tons
like
of comments, and people were like, I have to try this. And I'm like, you have to let me know how it goes. And like literally on Facebook, I think it's at like 6,300 views.
Oh
or
my
something.
God, as the train of truth
on
comes
Instagram,
by.
It was a couple thousand. And I was like, damn, like it's not, people want that unbridled joy. And it is contagious. People kept saying that this is contagious. Like, I love your joy. Like, so fascinating. But I was like, cool. So it was also affirmation for me that, again, like the right people, I certainly don't have to dial that down for.
Exactly. And I think as well, so many people on the planet are really yearning for a different conversation. There's so much of our conditioned personality that exists. And then we watch the news or we're around other people. And there's, the sense of, wait, something isn't truthful here. This isn't how I was supposed to be in anxiety or worry or shame or guilt. Like, people are wanting the different conversation. And I know that we work on providing that, and you do as well, which leads me to share a little bit about your upcoming launch that's really starting Friday, right?
Yeah. And I mean, at the time of recording this, I think it'll probably already have been going on for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but we're going to get this out in time. So let's
cool.
hear it. Yeah.
So Wild Soul Movement, for the first year or two, I was like, this is my baby. And then I started to realize that truly I am not the giver of the gift. Like, Wild Soul Movement tapped me on the shoulder and was like, listen, sister, I'm coming into the world. You look like a good vehicle. Do you want to do this thing? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I'm constantly feeling so appreciative that like it chose me, and that I get to just, be the mouthpiece for it. I do. I always joke that like Wild Soul Movement, like whoever are like the idea angels or guides or whatever, we're like, give it to that one. She has a big mouth and she's never going to shut up.
That's awesome.
And 3 years later, I still haven't shut up, and it just keeps growing and it gets more exciting. And so a lot of these, what you were just saying, Kisma, I love about people are wanting a different conversation, except, and I know you and Nick and I have talked about this a lot, many, many times offline. There's a way to have a conversation that is a bypass that goes, well, I don't want to look at the news and I don't want to deal with any of these things. So let me just block it out.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. That's like if you had a cut with dirt in it and you didn't clean the cut and you put a Band-Aid on it, that's going to get infected. Stuff's going to fester there. That's not helpful. But if you actually you feel the pain, you look at what makes you uncomfortable, you move through that, and then you get to the higher conversation. That's a more thorough, responsible, holistic approach. Right. That actually works in the long term, because then these things don't come to bite you in the butt later on because you just like put it on a shelf somewhere and you were hoping that you wouldn't find it again. Another analogy I make is like when I was little, my parents used to be like, clean your room. I'd be like, okay. And I would just shove everything under my bed and in the closet. And like the day would come when I eventually had to clean the mess in the closet and under the bed. And so Wild Soul Movement, it's basically a sensual movement practice where I use mantras, meditation, and like slow, really connective movements to help people quiet the mind, get into the body, really connect with their body so they can tune in with their intuition, trust themselves, cultivate the safety and the love in the body, in the physical experience without bypassing everything. Yeah. So they can develop the ability, the resilience, to like feel things, move through them, and then come out on the other side without abandoning themselves or without just relying on logic and rationale, which, as we all know, can be useful sometimes. But if it's the only thing people are relying on, it's really inefficient. It's much more efficient when we can connect with our intuition.
Yeah, it is. But and have it be guided also by, your logic, reason, your intellect, that part of it. But if that's the only thing you have, it's just, it's not.
It's empty.
It's not enough. I want to come back to just one quick thing that you said, which is really interesting to me about safety, feeling safe in the body and feeling safe in general. Like, I guess two questions. Like, one is like, how do you see that show up in people's lives, and how big of a problem is that? Is that like, how rampant is not feeling safe in your mind?
For my audience of women who tend to be, I call them the spiritually curious, people tend to become spiritually curious and seeking different answers and solutions when they have had an issue for a long time and nothing else has helped or worked. And so for a lot of, I think the stat, and so I might be incorrect here. It's either 1 in 3 or 3 in 5 women have experienced some kind of sexual abuse or assault. And whether it was when in early childhood or whether it was when they were already a teen or an adult can affect people differently. But when someone has had some kind of physical trauma in their body, and they haven't healed that, and they haven't been able to complete the trauma response, having that imprint in their body, and they're existing in life, consistently attracting things to reactivate it so they can complete the trauma response. And so that's why a lot of people just have old trauma in their body to varying degrees. It doesn't even have to be a physical or a sexual assault. It could just be an injury. Like, I've turned my ankles many times, and I still I get really shaky on my right ankle when certain things are happening, because it reminds me of what I was doing the last time I heard it. And so when we have those imprints, we don't necessarily feel safe in our bodies. We're not necessarily going to do certain things, or maybe go certain places, or allow ourselves to be enthusiastic or outgoing, or have fun doing something if it feels like there could be any kind of potential threat. And some of that is, it's existing in the physical body. Some of it is like a nervous system response. So anything people can do to be moving these things out of their body, being able to face it and realize what it is. So the natural set point becomes safety instead of, those triggers still existing. And I know you guys, with all the energy work and stuff that addresses that on the energetic level as well, I know you know what I'm talking about. So I find it to be huge for many people for many reasons, not to mention as well, women, especially here in the US, we are objectified and sexualized. Our bodies are, from the time we're very young. And so even just walking down the street and being catcalled, that can feel threatening.
Yeah.
So, I noticed the difference. I spent a good chunk of time in Europe earlier this year, and the difference between, a man might say something to you there, but if there seems to be, not across the board, but largely, far more reverence for woman and female form than here in the US, where it's almost like more of an entitlement, like, you're here for my viewing pleasure. Yeah. That can be really intimidating.
Yeah, it can be. And it just give a woman or strip a woman of a sense of purpose as a human being. Because it is so prominent. I remember, I don't know if I've told the story, but when Zoe was just a little, probably 2 years old, we were visiting my mom and dad in Ohio, and there was a shopping mall nearby. And I took her, and there was this man who was seemingly not hurtful. He was older gentleman, and he just thought Zoe was the cutest thing. And she was super cute. But he said, come here. And I was standing right there. And she ran up and he said, I want to give you $1 because you're so cute. And I was like, what?
Oh, man.
Wait a minute. And it just hit me. I was like, no. Thank you. See you later. At that age, being paid some money because she was cute.
Oh, it's bad. It starts
right.
Yeah, dang, that is just not healthy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She was all for it. And I was like, no, let's go.
Yeah. So to circle back to the question, it's to help women have a felt sense of embodied safety, but also sacredness. And when you can access your intuition and you're feeling your body signals, you're like, oh, this body can do way more and way cooler things than just visually or sensually please others,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It's something that I've seen, in my work, with energy mastery and working with people in that way of like, I never really realized like how big of a deal that was and what a limiting factor, just not feeling safe. And also like how pervasive that actually is. So I really appreciate hearing about that from your perspective and certainly from a woman's perspective.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. The Wild Soul Movement Summer School, is that what it's called?
That I've been doing this free series, this 10-week series where I'm basically deconstructing a lot of the topics that come up on my podcast and that are also part of Wild Soul Movement, just to go a little bit deeper with people and create some worksheets and checklists and guided practices and stuff for the common questions because it's super interesting. And obviously, like with any program, like not everyone's going to be able to invest in the program for whatever reason, or just choose to for whatever reason. So it's just that's a free resource, which has just been a bunch of videos on my Facebook page. And we've been making some blog posts too.
That's awesome. And the actual course, tell us a bit about that. It opens Friday, and I know people will be listening to this post that, but it'll still be accessible.
Yeah, it opens Friday, July 7th, and it'll be open for enrollment this year through August 4th. I like to give people time and space to like
I think it's so
feel
great.
into it, see if they really want to be there. I even wrote something on the sales page this year that was like, listen, the experience of the program and the community is way more important to me than people's money. Like I really only want people to join if they really want to be there. It's the same reason we don't have like a guarantee or a refund policy. In the FAQ, it was like, is there a guarantee or a refund policy? And I'm like, yes, our guarantee is that we're going to go out of our way to make sure you have an amazing experience in the program.
Right.
I'm like, but we don't do refunds, because if you're joining to try it out, like, try out the free video. Don't try out the course if you think you might want to return it, because I want people who are like who like really resonates. It does a lot for the caliber and the quality of the community experience as well. So it's based around these 4 main topics, which are surrender and release, trust and receiving, wild dreaming and desire, and love and creation. Because it's kind of like how transformation works. You have to be able to surrender and let some stuff go.
Yeah.
So you can trust and be more receptive. And then you have to be able to connect in with what your actual soul's desires are, not what the mind tells you want, but your soul's desires. So then you can go, cool, these are like the seedlings for my dreams. You have to deal with your worthiness stuff, so you even feel like you can go after your dreams. And then love and creation is like the best. That's how you should be creating, right? From a place of love, not necessarily fear or obligation, or because it's what everyone else is doing. So, the tagline that I love is become the living, breathing embodiment of feminine truth and power. And it's not about gender. I know sometimes people hear feminine, masculine, they think it's about gender. And obviously I do work with women, but it's more about just like connecting with that quality of energy that, like I said, many years ago, I didn't even know it was a thing. And so if I didn't know it was a thing, and like Nick was talking about geeking out, like I'm an avid like reader. I've been into like spirituality and self-help for years. How many books had I read that like that had never come up before? I'm like, if I don't know this is a thing, I'm sure a lot of other people don't either. And so, I mean, over 1,000 people have gone through the program over the last couple of years already. So I know I'm not alone.
Right. Or they're going to have to get it from some obscure source and try to figure it out, where like you're really taking that and putting it into people's everyday life and experience, like in our modern world, in our Western world, like trying to translate that from Eastern philosophy is not all that simple,
Yeah.
So I think just that's like such a cool bridge, and it really brings out a quality of femininity that is so often bypassed.
Yeah. And it's more about integration than anything, right? It's like connect with your masculine energy, connect with your feminine, integrate them. And then everything in life is just way easier, because you're never like being too soft and like in action, like in inaction. And you're not necessarily like forcing or pushing too hard. So you're going to burn yourself out. And everyone's middle of that spectrum is different. And so the program is really designed to help people find those sweet spots for themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I know we'll have a link available in our show notes for sure. And so check it out, everyone. It's going to be great. Before we go, I want to circle back to you because Nick and I both adore you so much, just as a human being, and seeing you work and seeing you sparkle and create. So I'm curious, in the future, what do you see, or what do you want to have happen? Is there like a bigger vision brewing for you?
Oh, there's a bigger vision, because here's the deal. We're still operating in very much of like a patriarchal culture, meaning just like these systems inefficient, outdated systems, whether it's just like the way our government works, whether it's like the oppressive systems, like, racism and privilege and like all those types of deeper, heavier things. There's just like a lot of stuff that doesn't work on the planet.
Yeah.
And so there's a massive ripple effect when you can empower people. And my chosen population is women, because that has been one of the oppressed populations. It's been like, we want you to be confident, but not too confident, because then we're uncomfortable. It's like, oh, have self-esteem, but like, calm down a little bit. Now you're too much.
Speak your mind, but
not too loudly.
not too much. Yeah.
Stay polite and pretty. And so, when you can really help people, and I'm not empowering anyone. I'm just facilitating processes for people to empower themselves. I'm not giving anyone a voice. People are finding their own voices, It's just when you can do that, the ripple effect is like outrageous. We've had women in our community. We helped 2 women leave abusive relationships this year. We've had women like let us know that they're engaged before they know that their families know. Like, there's also that thing about having a sisterhood and having safe space where people can connect. And because one of the big things with women too is a lot of women don't trust other women. They've had experiences of women being like competitive or like catty or nasty and jealous and stuff. So to also heal that wound, just like the collective feminine wound of how women relate to each other out of survival sometimes, is like, there's a lot of ripple effects that we're working. So my big vision is this. Last year, I started training instructors to teach classes. I created a class format. And then this year, I've also been developing a weekend workshop format that will also build out into a retreat format, because a lot of women are like, we love the online program. I love doing the videos and the practice, but I kind of wish I could, be in a room with other women and like really connecting. Because I think as our world gets more and more like digital, people are craving those like just analog, real time, like hug a human in real life, So make real contact. So I see being able to be thoroughly represented in both spaces, like online, but also offline. And so to just keep training up my teacher squad, and they're doing cool things. They're running like class series and all these things. And eventually they'll be running the workshops and retreats, and we'll have women who could speak other languages in other countries. So I see these like circles and these experiences happening all over the planet, so that people can really just connect and come home to themselves and feel confident and safe and okay to just like be who they are.
Yeah. I love that.
A true global vision.
It really
but
is.
with the mechanism to actually put it into action. That's what's I think really unique and very cool.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people like talk about, oh, we're going to change the world and yada yada, but then like, what are you going to do? Like, oh, I'm kind of busy today.
Yeah, I'm going to go smoke a joint and just like chill.
No, but you got the team in place. Like, you're building the team. That's amazing. Like, that is so freaking cool, man. That's really amazing.
Nick is inspired.
I am. I'm super excited. I'm fired up about it. I'm going to geek out for a second. I don't even care. Like, I think that's amazing. No, because, like I've been really blessed to have, strong women in my life, like Kisma. She's no joke, and Siobhan and others like that, like really strong women. And it's really meant a lot to understand like what that is and to see that in action, and also to see some of the struggles that come with that, like really stepping into that. And nobody like there hasn't been, as far as I've seen, a place to really explore that, except for Wild Soul Movement. Like, it's so powerful and it's so cool. So yes. Yeah. I'm going to geek out. Geeking out on it is freaking awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's like, it's not that it's all about us, right? Like, we do all this work on ourselves, but like, it does start with us.
Yes.
So you can't really be shaking your fist at other people if you're not cleaning up your own backyard.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
Yeah, totally. And I really loved what you said too about like, you're not giving somebody their voice, you're helping them to find that, and that to me is what lends the real power to the movement itself. Because if you were taking that all on yourself, you'd be so limited in what you could accomplish. But, putting that power in their hands and providing processes and systems in order for them to access that, man, that's, you can take that.
It is a
worldwide.
movement.
Yeah, that's why it's a movement. That's
great.
Amazing.
Elizabeth, on a personal note, anything that has dropped into your bucket list that you've yet to share with another human being?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, since I'm embracing my enthusiasm, I pretty much share things as they come up. Anything that has dropped into my bucket list that I have yet to share.
Some little seed of a desire of something you want to do, but you're like,
Well, I mean, this won't shock you at all, but I have got to get to Israel at some point, and
Yeah.
I've got to stand in some places
Mhm.
where Jesus Christ stood, where Mary Magdalene stood, and just see what happens.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's some
really
channeling energy there. That's going to be pretty
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So be it.
Cool. So be it.
Yeah. Any last words, any tips, information, shares for our listeners out there?
Yeah, I just want to say, if you're listening to this podcast, keep listening. Nick and Kisma are two of my favorite people. And, I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different circles and a lot of different spaces with a lot of different people who are very self-proclaimed around their authority to speak on certain things. And what's cool is you'll never catch Nick or Kisma proclaiming themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and do it for them. And these are just people who are just so deeply well-practiced, and like they're integrating and they're doing their own work all the time, humbly and diligently. And so this is just a good place to be. So I just want your listeners to know that you guys are the bomb, and I love you.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting teary over here.
I'm getting a little teary myself. Thank you. We love you too. We love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be on. Super excited for your venture, and everyone will have some information in our show notes. And Nick, Elizabeth, love you both, and let's go rock our days.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Peace.
Namaste. Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.